Welcome to another episode of HR and Payroll 2.0. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Good to see you again, Julie.
Thanks, Pete. And I know you're back on this side of the pond, and that's part of what we're going to share in this news update. So let's get into it.
I've been having some adventures. No, we got a massive news update, a whole bunch going on in the HCM world, the EOR world. Lots of angst out there with what's going on in the government. So I think we got a lot to talk about today. I thought we could share a winter update for the HR tech marketplace update, if you will. So
perfect.
So anyway,
lead on.
Yeah. So what have you been up to? I've got a lot to share. To be honest, I've been up to a lot.
I know you do.
In
fact, that's why I think you should just dive.
Let's just dive in. Well, did you see the big event we had yesterday I guess it would now be the day before with Jason Lee over at Chime, the chief payroll officer presentation we did. Man, high energy, a lot of fun, a lot of optimism. 2,000+ people signed up. I think we had most of them come in. That was amazing. Just a lot of energy for that. And so I'm excited for it. I mean, I know we've debated that here on the show. And look, I think
Remind people what the topic was.
Okay.
We're talking about it like everybody would know.
Yes. So we did a Chime, Jason Lee in Chime, who was formerly Salt Labs, obviously got acquired by Chime. He's now the head of, I think he's a chief of enterprise solutions for financial wellness and that sort of thing. He held basically a webinar yesterday with Payroll.org about the fact that maybe it's time, and maybe it definitely is time for a chief payroll officer, right? Just given the impacts to the P&L, the massive sort of influence or impediment to strategy, and just the rising sort of angst around payroll being obviously left behind and now needing to be modernized. So many things, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a little bit of a history lesson. I thought it was really cool. We talked about, I didn't know that the CFO role was only very, very recent. And that some of the other roles that have come about have been very, very recent. So why not a chief payroll officer? And so he made a case for that. We talked about what that looks like and what that means, how to achieve something like that. And they've got a big campaign. If you go over to chiefpayrollofficer.com, Chime bought that or owns that. They've got a 30 by 30 initiative. In other words, they want to see 30 chief payroll officers somewhere in the world by 2030. We'll see, right? But a lot of energy, a lot of opportunity there, and a lot of optimism.
You know, years ago, there was an effort where we saw a lot of chief learning officers pop up, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's interesting, and it is driving an awful lot of conversation, including conversation about what the people culture looks like when it's embedded under the CFO, for example, or under HR.
Well, I got an update from Chiron, right? We had the AWCC on here. They're going through, the next phase of their work, and they've actually gotten the accomplishment of establishing payroll as an industry, breaking it away from bookkeeping. And he told me, I posted this. There was opposition by the HR industry to stop that, and they were denied for their inability. Literally, it was quoted as the inability for HR to actually lead a payroll team.
And folks who haven't followed us or don't have that fresh in their mind, that's specifically the Australian body of work effort that is looking at standards and trying to raise the bar on what our payroll
credentialing, the way we treat them, the way they're educated, and look, I'll say this, I'll leave it at this, I don't know where it belongs. The jury's still out. Look, payroll is the largest P&L hit in the organization. I've not come across one, at least in the enterprise, that isn't the largest hit on line item on the P&L.
Depends on the industry, but
depends on the industry generally, but most often, right? Yeah. It is factually, aside from a publicly traded company's accounting, when you're talking Sarbanes-Oxley, the only process in the back office that will 100% get your C-suite put into prison. Fact. HR, if you screw up in HR, you're probably going to get sued. You might get a little trouble, a fine here or there, but no one's going to prison. If you screw up payroll, you don't pay taxes, you don't deal with garnishments, you don't do what you're supposed to do in the various places that you're operating, they can fundamentally come and shut your business down, and they will arrest people. It happens. And so I'll just leave it at that. And I'll say this, I think that we have to net this down to how we're engaging them. Call them whatever you want, but you've got to start engaging them in a different way. And I just spoke to a leader today who they decided, this company, mid-market spinoff, decided they don't need payroll anymore. They're just going to figure it out on their own, which I think is really shocking. And so now this payroll manager or payroll leader is obviously unemployed, but to the bigger picture, she's like, I don't know how they're actually going to run payroll today. So that's concerning because that's just really ignorant. So I don't know what the story is there, but I've heard a few of those happening in some smaller firms. That's very scary. So
hey,
anyway,
I'm going to wrap this bit up just with saying, I did a session on this at Payroll Org last year. This year again in May, I think there was enough demand that I'll be doing a repeat and refresh session on payroll and kind of where structurally it belongs in the organization with some, all this noise. There's plenty of new things to talk to, but if you're going to that Payroll Org annual event in May, just so folks know, there's I'll be talking about that while we're there.
Awesome. Well, I'll be there as well. I'll be there all week. I've got something planned with a lot of my client vendors, and we'll be recording with Daily Pay, The Source, and some other things. And you and I need to do some recording. Right. We'll have to figure that out. So, So anyway, look, as you can probably tell, I'm fresh back from Switzerland. I am full of cheese and chocolate. And I have seen the top of Europe and left our mark. I don't know if you saw.
I did see. So for those who don't know, we have those stickers for our podcast and for the payroll influence where the PPCI index is being run by Pete out of, and he's stickered Europe at some of the coolest places, really.
I did.
Without all adding graffiti, these are all sticker places.
Yes. No. Yeah. I was trying not to break any laws. I didn't want to get tracked down or, imprisoned. I don't know what happens over there.
Where? Like, I know you hit the top of Europe.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
give me some.
So I went to the, I think I'm going to say this, I might say this wrong, the Jungfrau Joch. It's the highest point. Well, it's not the highest point in Europe. There's actually, I think Russia actually holds that claim. I think Mont Blanc in France is a little higher. But fundamentally, it's the region there near Grindelwald, Interlaken, that sort of thing. And it is about 4,000 some feet. I think it's meters. I think it's like 11,000 some feet. Quite cold and blizzardry up there. You can see my video. I put us on the post up there. And I hit a few other posts around Switzerland. I think I threw one up in Milan, maybe even France. I don't know. But bottom line is we're well represented in Europe, and I know we've got listeners. We've got listeners in 40 countries now. So
I was just going to say we're well represented in Europe and listeners as well. So we know that maybe a few people will actually recognize our sticker.
Hey, you never know. I actually was able to have lunch. It was a really cool experience. I had lunch with one of my clients, HR Solution over in Switzerland. So shout out to Marcus and Joanna. We had a wonderful hot stone steak. I don't know if you've ever done that. That was a really neat experience. I got to have bone marrow. I drank vodka out of a bone. I put a video of that out there. You can check that out. That was a really cool experience. But yeah, it was great seeing clients and of course, ADP Rethink. Big shout out to ADP for bringing me over to Zurich.
I was going to say, I think we need to.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. I put an article out on that. And I think the big thing there was I titled that payroll is now the bride and not just the bridesmaid. And that's, a little bit of a play on the cliche. I think it was there was a brand back in the day that made that famous. I don't remember who it was.
Payroll being the bridesmaid, you mean?
No, just always the bridesmaid, never the bride, and so I don't remember what product that was. So whoever that was, cool thing. But
tell us.
But my point is that what we saw there, the conversations, the people on stage are really, really higher level executives now that are taking over payroll and transforming it because they see where it's headed. Or where it should be heading. And so I thought that was just a really, really breath of fresh air. It feels like we're turning the corner. It feels like we're having a different conversation. And I'm just hoping that every year this is going to be a different attitude towards payroll because we need it. We need it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I rethink those are traditionally some of the largest customers.
Yes.
But I think we see that same thing happening down market as well, especially as folks that are leaving, or kind of winding down from their big company experience, go into a mid-market or a smaller organization where you can't ignore payroll. It becomes more of the focal point because the HR stuff, is sometimes extras or, bells and whistles on top of just the nuts and bolts of getting things done. So we have a lot of those senior folks with senior experiences moving into, the mid-market space as well and bringing that, that leadership with them.
Well, I think people are realizing there's a strategic impact of payroll, and that's exactly what the Payroll Profession Confidence Index is trying to communicate to the C-suite. By the way, shameless plug here again, but if you haven't taken that, please jump in there. I think we're well over 500 people at this point. We got to beat our goal of 750. Hopefully we will. But look, thank you to everyone who's been a part of that and been sharing that. And we're pushing further into the 5 pillars this year. We're pushing more into the strategic impacts. And I think that's what people are waking up to and realizing that, hey, payroll is a lot more ramification driven and and an org agility enabler than we thought. And if we don't invest and we don't take care of it, it's not going to serve us well. So
yeah, I think we have like do it now, right? If you haven't, but we're coming into crunch month, right?
Yeah, last month, final stretch here. So we've got about 30 plus days left. Yeah, make your voice heard. Get in there. We appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who's contributed to that, sharing that pay slip. Niamo did a LinkedIn Live this week that we did with Catherine Honey. I know I saw this morning Deel had put it out there. So yeah, thank you so much. I saw, shared it. Everyone, thank you so much. Yeah. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into some news, Julie. There's a bevy of things happening. It's only February, and we've already had some cool announcements, some acquisitions, some new products, and yeah, it's only the beginning. So,
all right,
ready? All right. So let's start first with Workday. Quietly, I think they sort of announced a new product head. Maybe not quiet, but somewhat quiet. New head of product coming in from big tech. Garrett Kazmaier is going to be coming in and replacing Cyan Chakraborty, who has been the head of product and technology innovation for Workday. And I think this signals, if you look at some of the other past hires in the last, around fall or so, a lot of big tech is coming in, a lot of big data is coming in, similar to what you see over at UKG. And so I think you're seeing that signaling where Workday is heading, right? Obviously, AI being huge. And then, of course, the huge agentic AI announcement I want to dig into here as well, which I think caught a lot of eyes.
Are you including, what's the new product that they just purchased?
Well, Workday?
Yeah.
So no, we're just talking today. I'm just talking the agentic AI announcement, right? The fact that they have put out a fundamentally, I guess you could say, an agent manager. I guess we would call it. What are they calling it exactly? Let me see how they're looking at it. I'm looking at how they're talking about it. Agent system of record. I apologize. Agent system of record. Basically, they have now introduced and pushed forward with their agentic agents, and agentic being so your co-pilots are there to be a co-pilot, right? Help you sort of accomplish tasks. But your agentic agents are more those that are off kind of running down those HR and payroll checklists, right? Think about the series of tasks that you have to get done. Obviously, there's some handoffs often. There's some orchestration that's needed. And I think that's where the agentic AI is really going to be beneficial there. So new agents for things like contracts, right? They've got the new capability that can help with contracts. I can't remember the name of that, what they purchased. I talked about it on our Rising update. They got a payroll agent, which I think is awesome. It's going to identify and update payroll data anomalies. It's going to help with audit workflows, surface insights, and make recommendations for fixes, which is huge, right? Being able to say, it's one thing to be able to say, hey, you got a problem. It's a whole other thing for something to tell you that you how to fix it. And that's the stuff I love. Obviously, compliance is a part of that too. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the one that I was thinking of is actually Workday and Naya that are partnering. And it's in the benefit software space, right?
Yes.
And kind of plugging their bigger gap around, personalized education, decision support, which clients that are using Workday for benefits have been using Jellyvision and whatever else to kind of plug that gap. And so I don't think they acquired them. I think they're just partnering.
Might be a venture partner too. Yeah. Sometimes that venture portfolio has some really cool solutions that they sometimes do end up acquiring. But back to the agents. So financial auditing agent and of course a policy agent. So lots of things obviously that are solving some complicated use cases across ERP, both finance and HR. And look, I think the important thing here to understand is, and I kind of want to ask you this, Julie. I think Jerome Governal pointed this out on a post. Like, it kind of feels like managing agents, right? Like HR is kind of going to have to be a little bit IT now, or is IT going to manage that for HR? I don't think that's the best approach.
No,
but
it's a great point, and I think actually what we're seeing is some of it depends on what software, where your agentic software is built in, right?
Yeah.
So working with one practitioner who's done some co-speaking with me at some of the shared services events, they're leveraging a lot of their agentic AI through their Zendesk tool, and so that is such an HR specific tool. And HR kind of manages that outside of all the complex firewall stuff and all the nitty gritty, that it really does become, it's incumbent on HR to actually be working with the roadmap for the rollout of those AI features. And so I think we're going to find it all over the place. I think, already moving to the cloud, sometimes causes relationship, questions around, does now IT own it or HR own it? Generally, things have moved over into the HR tower because you need to know your business processes so
Yeah.
well. And I don't think AI is going to make it any more clear
Yeah. Well,
exactly who owns what, and there'll be
yeah.
overlaps. We know
Yeah.
that.
Agreed. And look, I mean, we got to be thinking augmentation right now, not replacement. But we've got to manage these things, right? We've all
Yeah.
been. I mean, look, HR's been managing bots with virtual assistants and RPA, right? One Source Virtual had the RPA platform solution back
Yeah.
years ago. You're managing these things now, and I think that's going to become part of a skill, right? Like managing agentic AI, managing bots, managing tech that is doing the work for you where a human might have done it before and surfacing to you the outcomes. And that's where the emotional intelligence, I think, is going to come into play. But I do think there's going to be an element of, if there's not already, technical proficiency that HR and payroll are both going to have to level up on in order to be able to manage these things. And I think what's cool about this agent of record, I know we fumbled the naming in the beginning there, the agent system of record. And by the way, I want to point out, and I'll throw this in the links here. My peer over at Red Thread Research, the brilliant Stacia Gar, wrote an excellent, I think, a very, very layman's term way of understanding this update. So I'm going to post that because I think she does a much better job than we probably can. Is just that there's going to be elements of, you need a framework to manage these things, right? Just like any process, right? You need objectives and metrics. You're going to need a governance framework. You're going to need orchestration frameworks. You're going to have to be able to have that human infusion and the emotional intelligence collaborating with the agents. And then, of course, there's always, the ethical concerns and all of that. And I think that that's what the system of record here is helping companies do, is one, access these agents through the Workday marketplace, but also activate them through Extend. And then, of course, create a framework to help actually manage and get the most out of them. So, yeah, exciting stuff. I think it's really cool. And I really do think that, this is the future. This is the future of HCM. Yeah. This is the future of everything.
Kind of implicit in that is just that others have their own flavor of that, right?
Oh,
and then just even operationally and organizationally working with a lot of companies, it's a standalone thing to work with a company who is trying to figure out what is the balance of HRIS versus IT or an HR tech COE is where I like to see firms go as they grow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be shaken out and it'll be an active conversation.
I know. Well, look, I'll be at the Workday Innovation Summit for the analyst in mid-April. And when I get back, we have to have an episode, though I'm sure there'll be a lot of clarity on this. We'll get to meet some of the new leaders. And yeah, I'll get to compare notes with some of my peers and I can share with you what we learned. So exciting times. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. What else you got?
Well, let's stay in the HCM lane for a moment. HiBob, they have acquired Mosaic, and that's an FP&A, financial planning and analysis technology that will now really be infused into the HiBob platform, which is a very culture, talent-oriented solution, as you know, and really bringing those synergies together for finance and HR for that what they call the modern middle market that they're targeting. But I think this is pretty indicative of that all-in-one platform kind of trend that we're seeing with the Ripplings, with the Zohos, and others that are getting wider, and even Deel, right, getting wider and wider with more capabilities. But it kind of begs the question, Julie, and I tweeted this. I don't know that I got a lot of reaction from it, but I'd be curious to get your point of view. Is how much ERP does the SMB market want with their HCM? And I don't know that I know the answer totally to that. Where does the line? Where do the boundaries mark off where HR and ERP are together for the middle market and the smaller guys?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it is a minority of the requests, especially as you go down market, that we see to put those together. That doesn't mean it's a bad idea, but quite frankly, for the vast majority of providers that serve the market, they are in one camp or the other. So just practically speaking, you can want to RFP or you can want to search for commonalities, but who's leading the show might determine whether you actually have couple of viable vendors that could do it, or you're just doing damage control because you're going to mostly go with a finance system or mostly go with an HR payroll.
Well, look at it this way. I mean, look, this isn't full finance, right? I mean, there's more to finance than just FP&A, but I think it does play right along with that, workforce planning, workforce analysis, people analytics. And look, in some heavy companies where you are resource driven, you've got to manage those really, really well. So I think it really plays well into HiBob's plan to further push up market where that will be necessary. But I'm just curious how much the SMB, mid-market, down market, sort of middle is going to lean towards that enterprise capability that everyone is kind of already doing in the enterprise space and the large space with Workday and SAP and Oracle. So.
And there are industries and sectors, right? So government and education, tend to view it that way through that lens a little more often. But cool. Especially, HiBob is like such a experience platform, right? And that's kind of like the antithesis of anything that finance people are usually looking for. So I'm actually intrigued to see how those two come together from an experience point of view.
They love data. They like to be risk adverse. I always joke. I have a couple of CPAs that are my neighbors. They're the most risk adverse neighbors we have. But I love them to death, though. Good people. But okay, now let's shift gears over to the EOR world, the global, I would say, global employment world. It's not just EOR. And look, we're the biggest. I'm the biggest, probably pounding drum for differentiation in this space. And Globalization Partners again has stepped up, one of the pioneers of this industry. And right now, in beta release is GPGIA, and you can go out there and actually use it for free right now. So this is a great opportunity to be an early mover here. But basically, what I think is they're doing here is unlocking all of that rich compliance, all of that rich legal and knowledge, expansion knowledge, and global employment knowledge, and powering it with AI, giving it to you at your fingertips in an embedded fashion for global employment. And so I think it's really, really cool. And when you think about the data set that they're sitting on, right? 750,000 scenarios learned across all of the workforce enablement that they've done around the world. It's really surfacing, really rich insights back, kind of like a lawyer at your fingertips and interpreting and helping you understand contextual questions that you might have around compliance or navigating a shift over to a new entity.
Just clarify for folks, what is it that's in beta that they can go out and just kind of test for free? It's it's kind of that compliance.
So you can actually, you can actually go out and you can leverage GIA. You can actually use it to ask questions, to enable chatting about your expansion needs, chatting about a compliance question, and giving you that guidance on how to do that. And information based on not just public data, actual real life, legal, compliant sourced information from inside of GP's proprietary data set. So a large language model that is incredibly, incredibly proficient. And it also supports contracts in 50 countries and 50 states. So a wide swath of opportunity there for you to have an advisory, sort of legal advisor, if you will, at your fingertips.
And if folks are just looking for a quick way to get to that, can we put that in the show notes?
I am going to put that down there. Yeah, because that is only going to, for a limited time, I think they're doing that. Eventually that will probably go inside to their own customers. But right now, it's out there. So why not take advantage of it? I think it's look,
give it a run.
We've talked about the fact that the value of the EOR model in the future is not just the ability to employ and the ability to act on strategy. It's the ability to access multiple channels of talent, but also to activate data and insights. They have rich data and insights, just like the ADPs of the world and the Workdays who've curated deep insights that they can then anonymize and support people with benchmarking. Your global employment providers like GP are out there providing that compliance expertise, that legal expertise to say to you, look, this is the right way to do this. This is the path, so that you're not guessing and making blunders, because as you know, it's easy to screw it up, right? And there's so much when you're leaving your borders. I mean, there's so much just in America, right? 16,000, I think it is, entities across all of the Fed, state, locals, schools, counties, whatever. It's intense. And so, having something to help you and someone to help you with a tried and true data set, I think is incredibly, incredibly cool. So very good.
All right.
Look, back in the news again, Deel. Feel like they're here every week. They are savages over there. Good for them. They're killing it. But look, I thought it was just interesting to point out that they received a new funding round of about $300 million and now at a valuation of $12.6 billion. I thought that would go up a little more just because of the fact that they had acquired a bunch of things in the last year. But here's the impressive thing, Julie, an $800 million ARR. Very impressive. I saw a lot of folks talking about that. I do think that's a really, really positive win for the entire industry. And I think we forget that sometimes. We look at it and go, oh, Deel did this, or GP or ADP or Workday. Yeah, but when one, I think, advances, it pushes others to advance. And I think that's the takeaway I have here is very strong results for what is a very, very important product solution that can be solved a number of different ways, but really healthy market.
Yeah, and for those who aren't familiar with private equity funding, you hear the big announcements of what they've secured, but it's not always clear that there's stage gates behind the scenes. And so, they have to be some results in order to release, waves of that funding or to then move on to the next level of funding. So, so it aligns, very well with the story of, showing results.
Yeah. Well, I think it shows the health of the of the global HR industry, and I think it's good for everyone. And look, it's certainly good for Deel as they steam their way towards an eventual IPO, which I think is really, really cool for cool for the industry, right? Very good. Just like it's kind of the way I think about when you see Workday on a golf shirt, or you see UKG on a basketball shirt. It's good for everybody, right? I mean, it puts eyes on the industry, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that ever.
You pointed out a few. We've even seen some high-profile commercials come up. In
the Super Bowl
this year alone at the Super Bowl that
was cool.
To HR and payroll.
Yeah, that was very cool. I thought that was a really neat situation. I know my mic was way over here. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
No, it's been good.
It's way off over here. I'm loud.
Now it's loud.
I'm loud. But anyway, look, I think it's I love the health of the industry. I love that we're talking about HR and global HR and EOR and payroll and all of these things, HCM, in the mainstream, right? Like watching a TV show now and seeing UKG or seeing Papaya. It's uplifting, right? Because I remember when it was just like, you told somebody you worked in HR, they looked at you had 3 heads, you're like, you're the principal's office or something. I'm like, there's a lot more going on over there than just telling people they can't, work from home or whatever. We do a little bit more than that, So anyway, good for everybody, I think. So congrats to Deel. Okay, Dooley, I wanted to throw these out there with you because I was asked about this. I was tagged by someone, and I'll tell you what my response was. But there's been a couple of more announcements by big tech, as I would call it, moving into the HR space. So, for example, you had Google create what they call Career Dreamer, which is really helping connect people with taking experiences and skills and connecting them with opportunity fit. Not something entirely revolutionary, but powered by data from Google, who obviously has a huge, diverse, very fast-moving workforce, and also superpowers when it comes to big tech. Another example, I don't know if you saw this, but Spotify has jumped into the to the game as well. They've turned on something called Disco, which is a similar tool. It's helping people in their own organization find opportunity, bring talent together with skills, or with roles with skills and roles together. Excuse me. And I think fundamentally they've taken a problem in their own business that everybody has: finding talent, retaining talent, all of that, curating talent, developing talent. And they've activated their big data against that and said, hey, let's use our tech to go power that. Now, here's what I want to ask you. I was asked, well, what do you think about that? Do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing? And I said, why not Spotify? Why not Google? Why not fill in the blank any tech that you're happy with? If that power of that tech is performing well in one market and it's doing it with a certain data set, why couldn't it do it with another data set? And why the hell not HR? We could use all the help we can get. We haven't figured it out. There's still a lot of opportunity. I say, let's take the help from wherever we get it. And if we can commercialize it and it works and it's safe and it's whatever, effective, why not? So curious what you think.
What say you, huh?
Yeah. What do you think?
I'll tell you what I think, so first of all, I don't disagree with why not. I mean, innovation comes from all over the place in the market. What I think is a real challenge is if you're a talent, if you're responsible for talent in your organization, these tools cropping up in these unique places in the marketplace, your first thought is, well, crap, that's outside of my, that they're not really worried about me promoting within my company for my talent and my work. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a while before we see some, the innovation takes a while to trickle down. And will anybody try that? Will folks care?
Yeah.
Or do you get to the point where certain industries, they know they share talent. And so, all right, it works good in that industry. It doesn't work good in another. But to me, that's the single biggest challenge. And then, as like data works outside of your data sets. And so there's a consolidation that's happening. People want to move into having more things in, the single environment so that they can apply AI against it. And this is not, neither of those are an environment that would ever be a key HR payroll environment, right? For you. So there's that. It's kind of sitting outside, but that's what gives you the strength to maybe tap into other populations and, the broader community of users. Like everything that comes out by companies, like we hear and talk so much about things that are so far from being prime time for anybody to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, presumably, and it sounds like these organizations have perfected it internally, and now they're saying, let's commercialize, productize, or share. I think it's cool. Here's my concern, and you'll appreciate this. Okay, if I'm a CFO, and I don't know what the branding is going to be on this disco thing or how the entity is working. I think there's two things that they've got to do to make this work. One, they've got to have people who running that business that understand HR and understand this world. Presumably that will be the case. If not, that's where I think the first step for the go-to-market actually working. So how they go to market, how they have this business run, and are they going to like lump it into something that doesn't actually understand what they have, right? That's a problem. So from a go-to-market perspective, I think they got to do that. The second thing is, imagine if you're a CFO and you're about to sign off on a transformation deal, and there's a 6 or 7 figure line item for Spotify. That's going to be a little bit of a problem. I think it's got to be some different branding, maybe some new entities made. I don't know how that's going to go down, but I can already tell you from experience, going in and presenting a business case, you sure as hell don't want to have to explain what is Spotify disco and why the hell do we need 6 figures for that or whatever, you know what I mean? They're going to be like, stop, nope, that gets cut. You know what I mean? So I think there's going to have to be some go-to-market work done here. So I'm going to keep an eye on this one and we'll see what happens. But
cool call out.
Anyway, but no reason why we shouldn't accept, I don't think, disruptors from everybody, right? That's how we grow. I mean, a lot of the innovation in America came from NASA, nothing to do with some of the things that we use it for. So hey, why not? Why not?
Absolutely.
Okay. So look, that's a wrap on the public news. Now we do have some big news here at HR and Payroll 2.0. I thought we could share. We made news. Not only is our viewership, listenership growing, and thank you so much to everyone doing that, but we are now officially on YouTube. So blow the horns. We're on YouTube now. And so look, the whole point of it is fundamentally to just channel to a new group or a new channel outlet where people can find us. Just one more way to engage with us. And yeah, so far so good. We've been getting a lot of feedback. We've been doing more video and it seems like it's going pretty good. So if you like YouTube, I like YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube. Pick us up there. You can find us there, and we'll still be on all the places that we were before. So
that's right.
No
and we
worries.
do have a little bit of history that we're trying to catch up. So while we do this going forward, you may find some oldies but goodies or some things that maybe you missed. And if that's your channel of choice, maybe you'll see some things that you didn't recognize.
Maybe we'll pick up some of the youth out there, the youth in the HR space.
That's right.
That would be good.
In fact, one of the first ones we put up was one of our Gen Z.
Yeah,
one of our
those
Gen
are popular.
Zs with Nico talking about kind of the open enrollment period and
we need more of that.
Folks like those.
Well, I shout out to Ryan Kay, our producer. He does a phenomenal job. He's teaching us two old folks how to YouTube, if you will. Maybe I'm speaking for myself, Julie, but I'm not the best at some. I'm not on every platform, but I do use YouTube. But I've never uploaded there, so this has been a learning experience for me personally. But I'd love to have him come on and do a Gen Z, episode as an entrepreneur and what he does.
I've been baiting him.
All right. Well, now we're putting him on the spot. He'll be listening to this when he produces. He'll help us out. I'm sure he'll come on.
Get it done.
Yes. Yeah. Great kid. Great guy. Not a kid. Young man. All right. So like I said, PPCI is raging. Please get out there and take it. Please share it if you've already taken it. We need all the help we can get. I want to get more worldly engagement. We had a little bit of a gap last year in Europe. They were a bit of a laggard. But no worries. We'll pick it up and we'll tell the story, whatever it is. But yeah, Julie, where are you going to be? What's what else do we need to know about? What else is coming up?
Well, actually, what I most wanted to talk about was some impacts and some thinking, right? As you're dealing with, everything that's happening in our own country in the U.S. with DOGE and government cuts and just a complete new paradigm that's being formed, whether you're for it or against it. you should be thinking about that through a certain lens with HR, right? It especially, firstly, probably will impact folks that are in different governments at all levels, where we're seeing layoffs and terminations, and ultimately that will trickle down into other places. So I did a little bit of brainstorming here with some of our team around,
Cool.
what sorts of themes we should be seeing and what sorts of things we should expect to be doing more work around, because companies, anytime there's big sizing, big changing, big things happening, people need help, and they just need some guidance. And like you said, some frameworks for these things. So I got a couple here I'm going to rattle off, just thinking off the top of my head about layoffs. Obviously there's resizing and kind of reshaping the organization, and the operating model and how things operate and who deals with what. It affects the size not only of your total organization, which HR should be responsible for, but also of the HR organization and the shared services organizations, right? And how they interact and support a business that is fundamentally changing, and sometimes some very unplanned ways. So those sorts of projects we end up seeing an increase in with things like this. I also wanted to point out a quick and easy one: contract renewals, right? So if you had 60,000 employees and now you've got 20,000 employees, your subscriptions and seats and, everything that you've contracted in HR, whether it's for payroll services or Workday or SAP, is based on subscription models. Usually, if these are big impacts, that's going to trigger some thresholds that are an opportunity to reprice in order to align your costs with your new sized organization. And so that's an area where we quickly jump in and, help companies address that. And if you're looking for savings that are not people headcount, looking at your supplier costs is, the next best place to go. I wanted to mention and call out too that when it comes to benefits policies and benefits administration, there are things like, carrier re-rate thresholds, for example. And if you're talking about impacts that could be 20, 25%, those are things that, brokers deal with. And so we see folks that need help taking a look at resizing and reshaping that. And then I was thinking even a little bit more into kind of payroll and benefits administration, Pete, and it harkened on me the days of COVID, where we all went into crisis mode, right? There are folks that will be having, in today's press, an 8-month salary and benefits continuation that needs to be cared for in payroll, right? As well as anything else. How is that treated? Does it need to be treated differently in any way, shape, or form? And what's the equivalent as you go down market? Call center capabilities. When folks went through COVID, somebody needed to take special questions around HR topics for that. And so we saw a need to stand up call center capability or have some sort of inquiry response that allowed folks to experience and to digest, what was happening and to be more informed, because otherwise it's just a big black hole of fear. And so these things should be hot on HR's minds. And we're fielding a lot of questions and conversations in this area. So I thought it would be, interesting to toss out, make sure people are talking about it and thinking about it. And if they need help talking and thinking about it, just reach out. It's something we're doing a lot of, and happy to talk to anybody about kind of how to be thinking about the impacts to your business.
Look, I agree 100%. And if you recall, for probably 2 years almost, I was warning that we were coming up on the election of the century around the world. It's not just the US, right? There were something like 63 legal major entities, including the EU union, that went to the polls, half of the population, I think, almost in the world. So that always has ramifications. Even if it's incumbents coming in, they're going to want to put their stamp on what they ran on. And here in America, obviously it's been obviously somewhat polarizing and disruptive. I'm a big fan of process improvement, but not sure I love all the barnstorming. I think we got to go a little bit more controlled. But I understand. I understand trying to improve and trying to remove waste. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you're right. It is creating a lot of angst, a lot of questions, a lot of what's in it, what's going to happen for us, how is it going to affect our industry. We already saw the disruption with the US aid kind of flowing to the NGOs. I've seen some of the EORs concerned about that because they support so many of them. There's just a lot out there. So plenty of information, reach out and get help. And yeah, follow us, follow all of us. There's lots of folks I think that are out there putting some good info out on it.
We're all just globally kind of used to, especially those of us who have been around the block for a while, it really not leading to drastic changes, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is super different about this and what's happening now. Again, that doesn't mean it's necessarily all good or all bad. It just means there's some big changes happening, and we have to put on our agility moves again.
Yeah.
And
adaptability.
figure out how to address.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, I'm curious to see how it is going to affect compensation and benefits and things and start to trickle down to the everyday worker. We'll see. Maybe it'll all be great. We don't know. You never know. Yeah. Some of these things have to play out over years before we find out whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. But yeah. Good stuff.
I always feel like it's on us. It's on us to make it great. Like the stuff is going to happen. Things are going to change. And, you can either make it awful or you can take the bull by the horns and wrangle it and figure out how the heck to make your lemonade, right?
Yeah. I learned that in the military. You can't pick who's in charge. You just got to make the best of where we are. And yeah, it is what it is. Look, politicians are going to come and go. Initiatives are going to come and go. Things are going to change. We got to be adaptable. It is what it is. This is why compliance, I think, is so critical. To stay very, very ahead of and be very sharp with. So, and look, change management is in style, my friends.
That's right.
And it is going to, especially with AI and augmentation. By the way, I don't know if anybody out there is listening, but there is a event happening here. Our good friends over at Sapient, Susan, is running a workshop off of the SHRM conference here in Atlanta. If you want to be a part of that, reach out. I'll actually plug that into the notes here, but it's in Atlanta and it's open invite to CHROs and executives that are interested.
Yeah. In fact, I think when you did that before, you put out a post that actually retweeted. We had a podcast episode with Susan. It wasn't one of our video ones, so I don't think it'll be on YouTube.
Early days.
We had some great change management conversations. So if you can't make it to Atlanta and you just want to, kind of give that a listen and you missed it earlier on, it's a great conversation. Anyways.
Yeah. She's an excellent change expert. And I always turn to her when I need some insights on that. And obviously it's backed up by the Sapient research, who I think very highly of. So well, look, where are you going to be, Julie? What's coming up for you next?
Oh, goodness. I've got a few things. The Shared Surface Conference, that's a large event across HR and other towers, is at the end of March. And I'll be in Dallas doing a Southwest Benefits Association event where we're talking a lot about leave administration. Cool. Those are a couple of immediate ones. And then, as you know, I'm always hoofing it around working with clients, and that's my favorite place to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Well, I'll be at Meeting of the Minds. I don't know if you'll be there, Julie, but I'll be over there presenting with Daily Pay. We're going to be doing a deep dive on a webinar we did where we kind of talked a lot less about the financial wellness side of EWA and talk more about how does this thing work? How do you position it in your organization, and what's in it for payroll, and why should you maybe look at it or why you should be looking at it as an enabler to solving problems. So it's a little bit more of an under the hood look. So we'll be presenting that over at Meeting of the Minds. And that's always an exciting event. I love going to that. And then, of course, I've got iSolve Analyst Day. So I'll come back with some fresh updates on the iSolve People platform. And then, of course, Workday Summit, right, in April. So I'll have some updates on that for you as well. So
I can hear us getting ready for our next news update. So that'll be our spring.
Spring is sprung. And when spring springs, it's it means H1 updates, right, from all the tech firms. So we'll be getting a round of those as the analysts, and I'll be sure to synthesize them and share them out as best I can as soon as we can. So yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap for today, right?
It is. And we will see you next time.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.